Russian special forces walked miles inside a gas pipeline to strike Ukrainian units from behind. Ukraine's military and Russian war bloggers have been reporting this information over the past several hours as Moscow moves to recapture parts of its border province that Kyiv seized in a shock offensive. According to Telegram posts by a Ukrainian-born pro-Kremlin blogger, Russian operatives walked about 9 miles inside the pipeline, which Moscow had until recently used to send gas to Europe. Some Russian troops had spent several days in the pipe before striking Ukrainian units from behind. Again, there's a lot of unknowns at this point and a lot of questions about the situation playing out in Ukraine. I do want to bring in Maryna Baydyuk, the president and executive director of United Help Ukraine, to discuss this even further. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh. It's my pleasure to be here.
And it's our pleasure to have you. And I did want to ask you overall, because my understanding is that you were one of the first people who spoke to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy after that very heated conversation in the White House with President Trump. What can you tell me about that conversation overall?
Well, even though the conversation was off record, Ukrainian community was greeting President Zelenskyy for the scheduled visit at Ukraine House right after President Zelenskyy left the White House. And what I can say that President Zelenskyy was very much calm, determined, and I felt a lot of positive energy from him. He knows that he hopes that mineral deal will be signed. He knows that his people are fighting for their land. He wants a long-lasting and just peace. And he was very grateful to Ukrainian community leaders who were present at Ukraine House. He was very grateful to the U.S. administration and American people for providing support over the past 3 years and actually over the past 10 years of this war.
You've said that one of your main concerns right now, and there are many concerns, is how your family members are doing that are still in Ukraine. What have they told you overall about the conditions there right now?
So myself, I actually went to Ukraine several times over the past 3 years since the beginning of full-scale invasion, and I still have my father and my sister there. My family was there on the day in 2022 when Russia started massive attacks, when Russia started full-scale invasion, and I was the one calling my family to go seek shelter because it was absolutely incredible for us to see that Russia started the full-scale invasion then. What we see now and what we hear from the ground and what you just showed a minute ago, that Russia continues their relentless attacks. Nothing will stop Russia but the force. We know that, and we hope for peace deals, but we also need to know that no negotiations can be done without Ukraine being present there. My family is safe, but no one is safe in Ukraine. When I was there, the sirens went off every day. I really admire Ukrainian resilience because people go to bomb shelters at night. They get up in the morning, they go to work as nothing happens. Children in Ukraine, can you imagine going to bomb shelter and then sleeping there or not, listening to explosions every other day? And this is what Ukrainian reality is. However, people are resilient. They're determined to fight for their country.
Do you believe that Ukraine can defeat Russia without help from the U.S.? We know that there's no more sharing of, military information, military intelligence. There are a lot of questions, a lot of discussion about that. So do you believe that Ukraine can defeat Russia without that assistance?
Well, that's a very tough question, Josh. I remember very similar, but still different question back in 2022 when people were asking if Ukraine can even withstand and survive beyond 3 days or a couple of weeks that were projected. And of course, Ukraine is grateful for all the support that we received from the U.S. in the past 3 years. and that helped Ukraine to withstand this aggression and continue to fight. It's going to be, again, this is a hard question, but in my mind, and this is what I told people before in 2022, and I will tell people now, that Ukrainians are fighting for their country. Oftentimes we hear, pretty much every day, we hear stories of people who are in the front lines because they lost their loved ones, they lost everything. Just yesterday was International Women's Day, and I read a story about a paramedic who came from Italy because her kids and her family were killed, and then now she is serving, defending her homeland. And there's so many stories like that. And for us, again, Ukraine will fight, but it's going to be very difficult. And like you said, with no humanitarian aid coming to Ukraine, with no military aid, and surveillance and intelligence sharing information being stopped, this is basically blinding Ukraine right now. And we saw that in the past couple of days after those announcements, Russia intensified attacks on Ukrainian soil. Just on Thursday, there were over 270 missiles and drones launched on Ukrainian infrastructure. Yesterday, there were attacks in Donbas region where you have 2 missiles striking a residential area. And what happens next? Russia targets the same area again because first responders got there, actually causing double casualties in the same spot. And that was Russian tactic: terror, attacks, killing civilians, torturing and persecuting Christians in occupied territories, abducting children. Russia abducted over 20,000 children, and they're now illegally are held on Russian territory. So with this, the tactics of terror and basically genocide are not going to stop until we have Ukraine win this war.
If you could speak directly to President Trump, to lawmakers here in the U.S., what would you ask them? What would you tell them?
Well, that's another tough question, Josh. When I think about this question, and this is, again, a difficult one, but Ukraine, I just want not just President Trump and his administration, but I want all American people to know that Ukraine is fighting for something that is true to all Americans: freedom, justice, independence, and their own sovereign borders. And when you see the U.S. administration turning its back on their powerful ally, because we all see Ukraine, and we've seen Ukraine fight for the past 3 years. And during this time, they showed bravery, resilience, and with support that was given, but still defending their borders was really powerful message sent to the world that Ukraine is fighting for not only their values, but also for American values that are universal for us. What is not an American value more than fighting for freedom of their own country? And I really hope, and my message is that we must continue to stand with Ukraine. We must continue to provide military aid, intelligence sharing, and intelligence sharing doesn't cost much, right? So these are the basic principles of allies: to share information, to give support when it's needed. And I really hope that the current administration will reconsider and provide much needed support, because we see with no support, attacks will happen more often, more people will die. It's not just the games, it's not just politics anymore, or it hasn't been really for the past 3 years. It's actually people's lives that are at stake right now. And with less support, there will be just only more casualties, more people dying, including children, families. We've seen, fathers losing their entire families, 3 daughters and wife, and this is happening every day, unfortunately. And that's going to continue to happen if Ukraine does not receive much needed support from the U.S.
My last question here before I let you go: can you tell me a little bit about United Help Ukraine and what you do?
Of course, United Help Ukraine is an American organization helping Ukrainian people. Since our beginning in 2014, this is when Russia started the war, annexing Crimea, we've been helping Ukrainian people with medical aid, humanitarian aid. We're very proud to say that before we were 100% volunteer-based. Now we've grown to a big national organization, actually international. We have logistics, humanitarian hubs in Germany, in Ukraine. We were the first responders. We were there the first 2 weeks of Russia's full-scale invasion, having our logistics hub developed in March of 2022. We're very proud to say that 94 cents of every dollar goes to our programming. And with that is medical supplies. We serve over 200 hospitals in Ukraine. Humanitarian supplies to people who really suffer from lack of water, lack of energy. And I'm also proud to say that over $75 million that our organization has deployed already to Ukraine. We actually don't depend on federal grants. We don't receive money from the government. It's from regular, ordinary people, Americans who send us their wonderful notes, who corporations and foundations who understand the importance of work in Ukraine, where we provide psychological assistance. We provide sustainable programs to make sure people have everything they need to survive, but also help them later when the war is over to rebuild and thrive into the future.
Maryna, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and help explain this a little bit further from a firsthand perspective. Thank you again, and please have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much, Josh, for having me.
Of course.